10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Live from London, this is The Sunday Late Show with Shaniqua Edwards-Hayde, and you are listening live.
Happy Sunday and welcome to The Late Show with me, Shaniqua Edwards-Hayde. I'm joined by Jono Josephs and Albert Adeyemi as we discuss representation teaching. Why don't more teachers look like me? Why don't more head teachers look like me? What is representation to you? Those are some of the things we'll discuss tonight.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org or join in the conversation by downloading the Podbean app and following Teachers Talk Radio. #TT Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Sunday to you. Don't know if it's the same for everyone else, but it's nearly half term for me, so I'm very excited. A bit tired today. So for those of you who've seen on Twitter, I've been trying to be on my fitness regime. And my fitness regime included this morning, I couldn't really sleep. So I decided that, 3:45 a.m.? I was like, I'm going to go to the gym. I mean, the gym was amazing. There was nobody there. That was great. But yeah, I'm still feeling pretty tired. Decided to do a bit of cooking. So that's what I've been up to today. For those who don't know me, I am Shaniqua Edwards-Hayde. I am a primary school teacher. I currently work in a primary pupil referral unit in London. I am a governor. I am a Department for Education ambassador. I'm a science lead. So all these exciting hats I get to wear. But I'm also tonight your TT radio host. So I am joined by some great guests today. We're going to discuss representation in teaching. And let me just get my guests to introduce themselves. So actually, can I start off with Jono? That's okay.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
No problem. Evening.
Good evening. So what would you like to know? How should I introduce myself?
Hey, firstly, how are you doing? How are you? Are you in good spirits? Are you tired?
Yeah, I am tired. However, I see the half-term approaching. But I've always tried to stay away from this whole mindset of living for the half term.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to take every day as it comes. Yes.
I love that. Positive vibes out here. I love that. Well, can you just tell us a bit about what you do? What role do you do in education?
Yep.
Yeah.
So as you said in the beginning, my name is Jono Josephs. I am a secondary school humanities teacher specializing in citizenship and religious studies. And I'm also head of year 8 at a school in Croydon. I've been teaching for 4 years now.
Okay.
And yeah.
Love it. Yes to a Londoner. Woo! And you've got quite a few different hats there you wear, so interesting as well.
Yeah. It's I'm pausing a lot because I have to just really, really understand or try to communicate something clearly in the sense that my main role is a teacher. I just have an additional hat as a head of year.
Yeah.
And I say that because those are some of the conversations I've been having with a lot of the students in my own year group, especially when they tend to pipe up with their behavioral issues.
Yeah.
Remember, I still have my year 11s to teach, and I'm here for you, but I'm also here for them as well.
I love it. Okay. I was like, you really had that answer planned, but that makes sense why. Thank you. And we've got Albert. Hi, Albert.
Hey guys. Hey Shaniqua.
How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You said you're tired. You sound like you've got loads of energy. It's almost contagious.
Oh, thanks. Albert, would you believe maybe 20 minutes ago I was asleep. So but obviously I'm here now. But yeah, that's what
I've heard
happened.
research shows 20 minutes is a great power nap.
Thank you. I've got the energy for this. And then actually, guys, I was cooking up I marinated my curry goat and I've kind of left it till this evening to try and
Come
cook up.
on.
So yeah, but guys, is it gonna work out? I'll be cooking till like midnight. So yeah, you guys will give me enjoyment right now. So it's fine. Sorry, Albert, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Albert Adeyemi. I'm a PE and maths teacher in a secondary school. I'm originally from London, but currently working up in Bedford.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm also a head of year 8, just like Janoy. And yeah, I mean, similar to what Janoy said, sometimes, finding the balance between the pastoral, obviously, role and being a teacher can be difficult. Sometimes the lines are blurred. But as Janoy said, we're teachers first, and then obviously that's additional responsibility that we take on gladly, I guess.
No, and I love hearing that. I love that you guys are like, I'm a teacher first, but I'm also glad to hear that you've got other roles in the school, because actually this is why I wanted to have this conversation today, because looking at statistics, starting to think about statistics. Statistics show that teaching as a profession is overwhelmingly white and female. If we look at 46% of schools have no minority ethnic teachers, included in ethnically diverse areas. And actually, if we bring it, and we'll go into it a bit further, if we're looking at other roles, middle leadership, starting to go into SLT, there's not a lot of black people, black teachers. So that kind of made me think, wow, this is a conversation that I feel needs to be had. And today I wanted to think about teachers just like me. So I think, we might delve into BAME, but actually I really want to focus especially on black. And I say black because those, you can't see me. I'm Shaniqua Edwards-Hayde, and I am, I guess, black British. I was born and raised here in London, the UK, but on my mum's side, we're Jamaican, dad's side, St. Lucian, so Caribbean. But actually, I look around, I was born here, and I look around, I teach in the same area that I was, grew up in, and there's a lot of children who look like me, but there's not a lot of teachers who look like me. I don't know if that's similar for you guys, that you've noticed that. It might be a bit different. So I'm interested for anybody to get involved.
I think, man, I think that's part of the problem. I think that depending on what school you go to and where you go to, it differs. It varies so much. So for myself, when I was growing up, in my secondary school, I had so many different black leaders, senior leadership, black female head teacher, and I didn't realize the weight of the problem until I left my school after finishing sixth form and beginning my journey as training as a teacher. And then when I went to various other schools, different areas, then I realized, whoa, okay, this my experience growing up isn't the same for all. And I just, you can go into it a little bit in more detail a little bit later on. But yeah, that was interesting for me to, early on in my career, I just realised some of the challenges black students face, but then also black staff in schools as well.
Wow, see, that was really interesting to hear. Can I hear what you've got to say over there?
Yeah. So I think it's similar to what Albert was explaining. It's very evident in our London schools how diverse it can be. And I think I'm quite fortunate to work in a secondary school that is extremely diverse amongst the student demographics. However, that diversity ultimately is less shown as we kind of make our way up onto staffing, But what's interesting is that there are certain staffs, I say staffing positions that are
Mm-hmm.
quite diverse. And, when we talk about the support staff, etc.
Yeah.
Um, but when we go into SLT, that difference ultimately can be quite shocking in certain schools. What always surprised me is that it is so evident to have a schooling system or a staffing system, sorry, that represents the
Yeah.
students or not necessarily the students, but the community in which
Mm-hmm.
the student is coming from. But we're yet to kind of see that. If we reflect back on the stat that you gave us, I think you said 47% of schools now
Yeah.
are yet to actually have any form of teaching staff part of their from any diverse background, and
Mm-hmm.
that's quite interesting, especially when we consider cosmopolitan cities like London should be that should be
Yeah.
the norm ultimately.
Yeah. That's it. You know, I thought it would be the norm actually, but it's really not. So actually, it's really interesting. You guys kind of talking about when we're growing up, especially in London, when you grow up, and the majority of the children around you are black, but then actually, later on in life, us seeing, oh, is it as diverse as adults and in certain places? Like I kind of have to think already as a teacher, where do I want to teach? Um, and obviously, I'd love to teach everyone, but sometimes I'm like, well, children who look like me, where are they? Do they have representation? And we're gonna delve into that a bit more. But I just want everyone to take a moment, like anyone listening, and I want them to ask themselves these questions. Got 3 questions, and it's growing up, were you ever the minority in your class? Growing up, did you have teachers that looked like you? And how did the above make you feel about your education and what you can achieve? Because obviously, I've heard differing views already, but me growing up, I'm just trying to think. Primary was a bit different, but I would say I wasn't the minority in the class. In secondary, primary not really either. But I had my first black teacher when I was in year 7 in English. First black teacher. That's quite late in life, to be fair, in London, to have my first ever black teacher. Like before that, there was no one that looked like me. And obviously, I've learned great things from all teachers. But just, I remember that day when I had that teacher, and I was like, oh my God, this teacher looks like me and we can discuss things. And she understood cultural discussions we had. And I just felt seen. And I didn't realize that day how much of impact, until that day, how much of impact that would have on me. Where even little things like, World Book Day. Growing up, I used to hate World Book Day, and that's because I could never think of a character that looked like me that everyone knew of. And I remember thinking, okay, I love Harry Potter, but I'm not like the same color as any of those characters. Okay, Matilda, let me go for Lavender, even though, no offense, Lavender was not the most exciting character. I was like, oh yeah, she looks like me. But then I remember even going with my English, talking to my English teacher who kind of understood in year 7 and was, saying you can be whoever you want to be though, but also gave me characters, made me realize, oh, there are great black characters as well. So I'm just taking you guys back to your school days. I know we kind of mentioned this, but do you remember when you first had your first black teacher? Sorry.
Should I go?
Whoever wants to go first? Sorry.
I'll go first. Okay. So I was born in Jamaica
Mm,
and I came to the UK when I was 7.
okay.
And so that would, if my memory serves me correct, I went straight into year 3, I
Okay.
believe. Yeah, I went
Yeah.
straight
Yeah.
into went straight into year 3. And already, somebody from a different country coming in and you have a different school, and then you have a different schooling type or system. It's a lot to get used to. But what I do remember having a year 3 teacher. Her name was Mrs. Maguire.
Oh,
I don't know where she was from, but I just knew that she wasn't white.
okay.
And that's because at that moment in time, I generally didn't know, okay, I don't know what country are you from, basically. And I think those conversations I never really had the courage to ask, especially coming from Jamaica, where predominantly everybody's black.
Yes.
And the next time I had another teacher who wasn't white, and I'm being very careful in terms of that is the actual terminology I class them as growing up, until I was able to kind of develop that, the actual common verbiage of it all, was in year 6, and his name was Mr. Smith, and I knew that he was from South Africa, but again, he wasn't the typical individuals who you think were from South Africa, but I just knew that he wasn't white. And then moving forward, I had a next teacher, a female teacher. Her name was Miss Ansar. And we had in year 8. And then I had a Jamaican maths teacher. And I guess each stage of my education, there's been small pockets of minute representation, but I've never seen any teacher fully as myself until it was a Spanish teacher. It was a Spanish teacher in year 9. But that was interesting for myself personally, because I'm coming from a place where I'm surrounded by so many different teachers. It's the norm to have black teachers. To then come to this country and then small pockets or small periods of non-white teaching in a school that's predominantly white. And so they automatically stood out to me.
Yeah. Of course. And that's really interesting, because you give me a different aspect to think of, actually, where you've come from Jamaica and you've come here, and actually you've seen a bit of a difference, a total difference, really. Interesting. Very interesting. Albert?
Yeah, my story is not as interesting as Janoy's.
Hit us with it.
So in primary school, I don't recall having a black teacher. However, I remember there was a black male teacher that worked in the school. So obviously in primary school, you have your class teacher, and that's it pretty much. But there was a black male teacher. He was Mr. Onkolo, and I just remember him being present around, seeing him around. So he was definitely there. But in terms of being taught, when I went to secondary school, I was taught by many black teachers, whether it be for maths or English or various black teachers. And yeah, like I said, my school was we just felt comfortable because it was predominantly black, and we, it's only looking back, that reflecting that we, and being involved in conversations like this, that you realize the pros and cons, and maybe how lucky I was to grow up and go to a secondary school that had such great black representation across the roles in schools. So for me it was quite a lot of black teachers in secondary school.
See, that sounds like you sound like really fortunate in that sense. Actually, I'm a bit like, oh, how great. And you started to make me think there, black male representation and any black male teachers that I had. And I really had to think. I think at some point in secondary school, I had an ICT teacher who was black. But other than that, I don't think I did. And that's interesting, because actually, if we go to statistics again, all ethnic groups except white are underrepresented at all career stages of the teaching profession, except for initial teacher training. So we've got people from Asian, black, and other ethnic backgrounds that are overrepresented among applicants to postgraduate teacher training. Teacher training. So that suggests there's no shortage of interest in joining the profession among these groups. They get accepted onto it, but then later on, you find that the BAME community are not fully represented later on in the other career stages of teaching. And then, as well as that, I start to think about, I don't often see enough where I am, black male representation. And the thing is, though, there are some amazing black males doing great things in education, and I feel like you guys highlight that a bit more, because I heard there's something you're involved in. Please, I don't know who wants to answer first, and especially you're a black male, so I feel like in this sense, I want to learn from you. What do you guys think?
Yeah, what you said was spot on in terms of the recruitment to ITT programs. Black teachers are overrepresented, but then it's a massive decline from there on out. Black Men Teach is what me and Janoy are involved in. We co-founded this network, Black Men Teach, in the hope to raise the profile of black male educators. We looked at our own experiences. We looked at the sort of the current state of education, looking at some of the research in regards to representation and the differences between male and female representation at various stages. You mentioned your primary and black men in primary school. That's almost like gold dust sometimes, and the early years. So that's why we're on this mission, this journey to, raise the profile of black male educators, amplify their voices, and sort of change the narrative with regards to education and black men. There seems to be this, Janoy says the word boogeyman, like this idea that education isn't for black men. In a book by Jeffrey Groucho, he talks about black men being seen as an anomaly in education, as in like we're not. It's almost like we're not meant to be there. However, that's not true. Like you said, there's many black male educators that are doing great things in their various settings, and that's what we've come together as a team. We've got a team sort of support that we work with to support us in this mission.
I think that sounds like a great mission. I love it. How many are there? Quite a few of you. Are you all in London?
Yeah, so so there's myself and Janoy who are the co-founders. I'm based in Bedford, Janoy's in London, and we have a team of about 6 to 7 other educators across the UK. So we've got 2 in Manchester, that's Kimoy and Akeem, and then we've got 2 in London, that's Jordan and Omar, and then we also have who am I missing? We've also got Stephen, who's based in Kent, and yeah, so we've got our team that's across the UK, but then we've got a wider network of educators. We've got the elders, the people that have gone before us and that we're standing on the shoulders of, that are supporting us. We've got the likes of people in Birmingham, just across the UK. So it's a widespread mission, and we're growing each and every day, and yeah.
God, you guys are doing great things, because in a way, sometimes I'm like, where are the great black males? Because I know that they're there, and actually, I know my kids, any kids I've ever taught, they get so happy as well when they see black men, because it's like, like me, and I've had kids say that to me before, Miss, you do this like me, but then actually when I've got people to come in who are black men, I've seen like my kids just, be full of so much energy. But then I remember, I do some work with the Department for Education and Train to Teach. And, I go to events and I discuss teaching with people who are thinking about going into teaching. I remember once I was talking to this black man, and he was just saying to me, he was like, I'm interested, but he was like, what's it like for a black man? He was like, I don't really hear enough about black male primary school teachers as well. And he already knew that it was underrepresented, and he was like, should I join somewhere that is like underrepresented? Like, who do I go to? And I feel like there's so much already to think about as a teacher, let alone when you're a black teacher, let alone as a black male teacher. So shout out to you guys because there's quite a lot to it. Yeah, Jono, just gonna ask you, Jono. Have you found? Do you know any primary school black teachers?
So, as well as us being BMT co-founders, I'm very fortunate to have met black primary school teachers through this
Love it.
organization, and I think it's been a learning journey for myself. So on our core team, we have Omar Green, who is a primary school teacher, and last week we had a session a virtual event known as It All Matters. So representation, all stages of education. And Omar delivered this amazing segment on being a black man in a primary school setting. And I was genuinely, just taking notes of his experience. And I realized that it's so interesting that I will never be able to speak on the experience of a black male teacher in the primary school, because I haven't experienced that. But there's so much connection between it, but there's also differences as well that needs to be highlighted. And I think the purpose of Black Men Teach is to actually create that platform where, that gentleman who you ran into, he will be able to be signposted to Black Men Teach and then signposted to a community of teachers that he can resonate with. And that's generally what we're just trying to do. But I think primary school, there is that lack of representation there in primary school that we can't actually ignore, I would say. But there's also that in secondary school as well. And we all need to kind of work together because we want to see more of us in those places and spaces.
Yeah. Hey, I love what you're saying. Because, in reality, we just all need to work together. We do need to work together. Because actually, I feel like it's important for the kids, but also it's important for us to help each other out and realize that we're not alone. And there are all these passionate teachers. And I say teachers, but this is where it gets interesting because nowadays, I feel like we're getting a bit better with the teachers, the black representation of teachers. We're getting there. We're starting to get there. But where we're not doing as well is there's a big lack of BAME senior leaders. And I'm talking especially black senior leaders. We're finding this is where there's a lot of trouble at the moment. So we're going to continue with this, but we're going to hear from the news and just find out what's going on in educational news at the moment, and then we'll discuss that.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, a leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out! Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
At the National Higher Education Conference, Unison Assistant General Secretary John Richards opened proceedings with a damning critique of the government's approach towards university education, according to Unison's own website. Mr. Richards focused on out-of-touch ministers who fail to understand the current funding crisis and pointed out that the funding models across the UK seem to be broken. He cited the issue of limited government funding as causing a de facto cap on student numbers and accused the government of trashing the UK's reputation for higher education in Europe, leading to big drops in the numbers of overseas students. A story covered by Teachers Talk Radio News last week. Mr. Richards went on to assert that those in government do not understand the cost of living crisis because they've never had to face it. Strike action by those working in the HE sector has been part of a wave of action taken by unions across a range of public sectors in recent weeks. The last week saw the release of details of government plans to revamp children's social care in England. BBC News reported on the plan for more early support for families and the extra £200 million funding for the next 2 years. Last year, a review warned that tens of thousands more children could end up in care without additional funding and reform. The plan has faced criticism that many of the changes are being rolled out as localised pilots rather than a national programme. The government plans to put families at the heart of the reform and intends to provide better support for all vulnerable children in order to reduce the need for crisis intervention. There will be pilots in 12 local authorities which will deliver more early support for families struggling with addiction, domestic abuse and poor mental health. There will also be more family-type placement for children in care with relatives, friends or foster families. Other changes include plans to recruit more foster carers, a simpler process and more support for relatives or friends who take on children, a rise in the leaving care allowance, and support for councils to recruit and retain more social workers. Economic, Constitutional and Social Policy Forum Politia has published an article focusing on its views of the proposed changes to the school's history curriculum. The publication History, Whose History? The Battle for the School Curriculum features 3 historians' views on the proposals. The government's plan for reform came in response to recommendations from the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities. The plan for a new model history curriculum for pupils to see themselves as integral parts of what makes up the UK today was proposed. The essays included in the publication focus in on the responses of a variety of academics who all appear to conclude that there is no need for the proposed changes, because diversity is already built in the current programme. Further details of the publication and forum for debate can be found on the Politia website. Finally, a school principal in a rural part of Northern Ireland has expressed concerns over safety after it emerged that recruitment of lollipop men and women is being frozen. It comes as part of a drive to save money. The current power-sharing deadlock in Stormont meant no budget could be agreed and significant cuts needed to be made. The principal of a rural primary school, Donna Winters, told the BBC that until recently there had been consistent crossing patrol staff that have been vital in making sure pupils can cross roads safely, but that they have not had staff since December. The school has had to resort to employing a patrol staff member directly and, when they are absent, teaching and support staff have to fill in. Ms Winters went on to point out that safety was not an area where cuts should be made. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, it's Safer Internet Week, with the official day being on the 7th of February. This year, the UK Safer Internet Centre focuses on Want to Talk About It, making space for conversation online. They've got loads of educational resources on the website saferinternet.org.uk, banded into 3 to 7, 7 to 11, 11 to 14 and 14 to 18 years of age. They are even translated into Welsh and have adapted resources for SEND and ALD. So, they have pretty much covered all bases. You need to take a look. But why do we need to get our young people talking about this? Well, let me try and give you an idea in one breath. With an estimated 5.16 billion people using the internet, that's 64.4% of the world's population. It's estimated that around 500,000 predators pose a threat to young people daily, with the main target being 12 to 15-year-old children. With a quick search of statistics from the internet, I found supposedly 1 in 25 children will be manipulated in some way this year, and 80% of predatory behaviour will be through social media. This coupled with only 15% of parents actually knowing what their children are doing online makes this an issue which definitely needs to be talked about with our young people. To get some perspective on this, every 60 seconds TikTok users watch over 167 million videos. Data never sleeps. We need to know how to stay safe because the sheer volume of data means it cannot effectively be policed. Please send your thoughts amongst the 575,000 other posts every 60 seconds on Twitter at TT Radio Official. I'm Steve Woods, and that was 2 Minute Tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Lovely. Some great little bit of tech advice there from Steve Woods. So thank you. I am back. It's a Sunday late show with me, Shaniqua Edwards-Hayde, and hopefully I've still got Jono with me and Albert with me.
Yeah, still here.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Yay! Haven't scared you guys away. Love it. Thank you. So before the break, we started to talk a bit about diversity and the lack of BAME, but especially Black senior leaders. And hopefully people listening are realizing, I'm quite passionate about representation and why representation matters. And I hear the word diversity pop up a lot. And diversity is important in education. Students need to be able to see themselves in their teachers. Now, this isn't to say, though, that white teachers can't bring value to Black and brown students, because they absolutely can. And I've learned so much myself. I've had many white teachers who've made a positive impact on my life. But there's also something about having a teacher that you can see yourself in. BAME teachers give minority ethnic students a chance to see what academic success looks like, and also gives them something to aspire to. For children to see an adult who looks like them, possesses great qualities and an abundance of knowledge, of course will leave a child feeling inspired. But this is where I'm noticing sometimes it stops, but it can't stop, and it shouldn't stop with teachers in the classroom. School leaders also need to represent their students. Head teachers and senior leaders must also be diverse. I mean, for Black students specifically, seeing school leaders that reflect them is empowering, and it also helps them to aspire to reach those positions. If we think about statistics, according to the latest statistics for the school teacher workforce, 92.7% of head teachers in England were white British. And these figures are alarmingly low for Black head teachers, with just 0.2% of head teachers being from a Black African background and 0.7% of Black Caribbean heritage. It's quite crazy, actually, because we talk about representation, but then it feels like representation is capped to a certain point of, okay, you're a teacher, you might even, become a head of something, but never, or not as common to see head teachers. Now, I'm interested, what are you guys seeing to do with SLT? I don't know, do you think I'm talking rubbish? I'm interested to hear. Let's see, Albert. I feel like you're ready.
No, yeah, I agree. I think I think I'm seeing quite a few more Black educators being promoted into those senior leadership roles, just from sort of my own networking, and so I think we are seeing some sort of move in the right direction. But I think for me, the concerning thing is the amount of teachers that maybe go into those senior leadership roles, but then decide education is not for them anymore, and the reasons why they do that. So it's all great being promoted into a senior leadership role or being getting that headship. However, if the wider organization, whether it's the governing bodies or the trust or the academies, are not built to support and built to accept Black leaders, then it's going to be we're not going to make any more progress than that. So I think that's the area, because I've had a couple of conversations with teachers, with senior leaders who've decided to leave education around their why, and it's about the meeting rooms and their voices not actually being valued or heard in those spaces. So it's getting to that role is great, but then is your wider SLT supportive and valuing of that Black person that's been promoted into that senior leadership role, or is your staffing body respectful or equally as respectful to a Black senior leader as they are of someone of a different race? So I think that's the area where I'm conflicted, and that's the area that I'm more interested in, is the creating spaces where Black leaders feel comfortable and feel accepted and welcomed and able to do their job to the best of their ability, because their staff around them, their other senior leaders, their trust, their governing bodies support and respect and value their ability as a leader.
That's actually really interesting because you made such good points though. Actually, okay, it is a bit of a challenge to get into SLT. People are getting into SLT, but when they're there, are they actually being accepted? And actually, sometimes I find the rare few who are there kind of feel undervalued, sometimes isolated, and unsupported. And they're given sometimes such stereotypical responsibilities, and actually they're not enjoying it, so they step down. So actually, you've raised such a good point, because what's the point if you're not supported after all of that, and you're there trying to build that representation, but also trying to just be a good senior leader, and actually you're not supported. Jono?
Yeah, Albert said it actually really, really well, in the sense that it's it's one issue, or it's one hurdle to kind of get into these positions. But then once you're in these positions, you realize that there's like 10 hurdles to kind of remain in these positions. One of many things could either happen that a lot of people would, the wider SLT would always look to you as a solution to, I don't know, certain issues that you may not necessarily even have the expertise on, but because of for example, the delivering Black History Month assemblies or something like that. And that's one of the things that we actually really want to kind of talk on is the boxing of Black teachers in certain positions and certain roles. And I think it's quite important that, just like any other white counterpart within any profession, Black teachers should have the freedom to kind of explore and not be boxed in, and just have the support to kind of remain in those positions, and even excel further. But that's an entire different conversation in itself.
Yeah.
No, but that's a great. It's great what you're saying, because I was thinking the same thing when I mentioned stereotypical responsibilities. That being one of the biggest stereotypical responsibility I always hear. I've had, and actually, there's just so much more to this, where I'm thinking about, just when you want to be SLT, you want to be you work hard. And it's like what you said, there's just all these even more hurdles coming up against you. And that's why, though, I really want to highlight the amazing work that some senior leaders, Black senior leaders, are doing out there, because I know it's not easy at all. And I can imagine you guys get to interact with some amazing people doing such great work. And just for me right now, if I think about it myself, I think growing up in school, I cannot name you anyone who is Black who was in SLT. And actually, the two schools I've worked in, there's not been any Black SLT. So that's really quite interesting. Although I am the governor of a school, and the school that I'm a governor to, they have a Black head, and actually an acting Black deputy head at the moment. And I can see how this head teacher does such an excellent job, always trying to connect with the community, because she understands, community spirit, and she'll do whatever it takes to connect to the community, and nothing feels forced with her. I love that. And I can imagine you guys have interacted with some great senior leaders as well who happen to be Black.
Yeah, most definitely. We've interacted with some amazing senior leaders who've supported us personally, and as our network as well, Black Men Teach, and who continue to do amazing things, and especially in paving the way for others. Considering the challenges that they've faced, and the things that they've learned on their journey into leadership or headship, and just passing that knowledge, feeding that knowledge down to open the doors for others, so that the experience doesn't have to be as challenging, as much as there may be hurdles along the way. You've got people who've been there, done that, and advising you to navigate that leadership properly.
Yeah, I know some amazing SLT individuals who are doing amazing things, and I think the underlying tone that I hear from quite a lot of them is that unless they're in a supportive environment, they just feel very much frustrated that they're not able to thrive.
Yeah.
And it's always fascinating to kind of hear this kind of conversation because, you know, I'm a middle leader. There's ambition to be an SLT. And so it's always good to kind of hear, or without even being a bit deflated, that the realities of what to come when you get into these positions. Because yes, comes with, you know, you have more power, you have more responsibility, etc. But there's a whole different level of challenges that you will face.
I feel exactly the same. Where I'm like, wow, I'm, you know, I feel like I'm aspiring. I'm a middle leader, aspiring to, you know, hopefully assistant head, move up. But I know that each step I move up, there's just going to be even more hurdles. And will I get the support? That's another thing. I have to think about the kind of school I want to work in, because is there going to be the support higher up? Which is something that obviously as Black people, Black teachers, we have to think about. It leads me to think about a few weeks ago, I joined in, it's my union run it, and it's like a group for aspiring Black middle leaders, and we hopefully want to get into SLT. I mean, the fact that there's loads of groups going on like this, and what Jono and Albert are doing, amazing. I'm loving that that's there, but I don't think people realize this is some of the things we're going through on the side, but also doing things and joining groups to feel supported. And so I've been a part of this group, and actually it's quite amazing because it was open to just anyone who's considered Black, who considers himself Black. And actually there's no Black men, it's just Black women. But I'm going to say it probably wasn't publicized the greatest. It's nothing to do with me. But what I have noticed though is that there were a lot of, I'd say, older Black women there who, you know, I was like, I really want to do this. I'm feeling inspired. Like, I want to be an assistant head. I'm going to get there. And they were like really positive for me. But actually, a lot of them spoke about a lot of gatekeeping and microaggressions that have gone on, but for them not to have got to the stage that they wanted to be at. I heard a lot of, you know, of the Black women talking about how they've been called aggressive when actually they've just been really passionate. And they were like, you know, these kids that I teach are like my kids. They are my kids when I'm in school. And so I'm actually really passionate. But actually, I've heard the word aggressive used. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I heard that commonly used around. I heard a lot about CPD opportunities that were stalled every time these teachers wanted to move on or do something with CPD, you know, it was stalled, or the common. And I think everyone gets this one though, but most of the people in the room spoke about opportunities for promotion being stalled and them hearing about experience. They wanted, you know, that they've gone through the interview, they've done everything, and they don't get the jobs because of experience, even though they had the experience. And actually it was really quite a supportive group and uplifting, but also it was really sad also hearing some of this, because I'm still quite new to the profession myself. I'm just very ambitious. But to hear these people who have been ambitious, but have stuck around for so long, hoping that things will change. You know, I think that's why I really wanted people like Jono and Albert on today, who represent, you know, some of Black Men Teach. Because you guys are doing such great things, and it really does mean a lot to people who we don't really know. We don't really know what's happening. We need the support. So I don't know if I don't know if it's the same, if you've heard any of that from any colleagues, or just gatekeeping in general. Let's start off with Albert.
For myself, My school is being massively supportive of me and my sort of career and sort of my development. There's no black members of staff in SLT. However, they that hasn't posed an issue for me at the moment. I know on the wider things, the wider sort of the picture, the bigger picture. It's not great, and there's a long way that the school needs to go in terms of sort of diversity and ensuring that SLT is representative. But then on the flip side, I'm also understanding that it can't be tokenistic, and it can't just be a thing, okay, overnight or just for the sake of doing it. For it to be done well and done right. And with, I mentioned before, being supportive of black leaders, it has to be a long-term plan and within the school's sort of culture and ethos and things like that. So in terms of myself, I haven't had any sort of career blocks. The closest thing I've had to sort of where I've sort of questioned my values and whether I belong in the school was when I went for my first head of year sort of position, and I didn't get it. I missed out to my colleague who was a white male. But I think whether there was any sort of play on my race, I would never know. But I think that's the issue there. The fact that when black teachers, leaders don't get a particular role, there's always going to be that question, that doubt in their mind. Well, why didn't I get it? Did I do enough? Did I miss? Is it because I don't have enough experience? Is it because someone else was just that little bit better than me? Or was it because of my race? So I think when I was going through that, it was just the questions in my mind. I'd done a lot of reflecting, and it's those little hurdles that you have to overcome as a black educator and to keep progressing. For me, I sort of just had to take it on the chin, and I just kept doing my groundwork and the things that I was passionate about in schools. I do a lot of mentoring, and just a lot of the work that I do, I just kept going, and then the next opportunity I got it, and that's why I'm in my current role. So it's difficult, and I think so. My point there is the doubt that's always going to be in the mind of ethnic minority when they go into interviews, even if it is not necessarily because of their race why they didn't get the role.
So true, so true, so true. Jono.
I'm sorry, I'm listening to Albert, and I'm just so exhausted in the sense that the struggles, right? That second guessing that he spoke about is so tiresome. And I think what makes it even more difficult is the fact that that's an everyday thing. It's a big thing that we ask ourselves, are we enough? Or if we're not enough, is it because of the color of my skin? And I think our roles in teaching as a whole is a very, very difficult profession. You have the specific roles in teaching that's quite difficult. And then on top of that, to be, some will say minority, or others will say global majority. That also brings us challenges as well.
Yes.
And I think sometimes it takes its toll on, our mental health, in the fact that it's too much. It's absolutely too much to always be on defense when it comes to certain things. And from what I've experienced, my school, I'm very fortunate to work in a school where I can consider my head teacher and the SLT to be allies, and they understand and they see the need, and that comes down to even what my head teacher explained. He said that he's fully aware of the fact that there isn't that full representation at the SLT level, but he's committed to the fact that within the next few years, when it comes to hiring, he's going to be looking at MLT, where the majority of MLTs are Black women, Black men, etc. And so he's kind of reassured us of the fact that we're not going to be overlooked or overstepped. And I think that's quite good to have those individuals in your side, so on your side. But that's my story, and I think Albert's story is Albert's story, and we know that there are people out there whose everyday experience is so traumatic. It's like, why continue?
And
And
then we lose them, from the education fields.
And we're losing. I think for myself, what I'm realizing is that not just because of race, but also when you think about the profession itself, we're losing the wrong people, the people who are there for the kids, the people who are there who want to make a difference and want to change, but their hands are tied. And I think it gets to the point where they had to kind of put themselves first. And so many of them leave the profession because of that, or many of them are afraid to step into roles of authority because they know what's going to come with it. So they'll rather just, take care of thyself ultimately.
Yeah. And that's happening a lot at the moment, where, I'm talking to teacher, there was a teacher who, did she teach me? She taught my brother, but I ended up working alongside her. And she was enjoying teaching. And then one day she just said, you know what? It doesn't excite me anymore. There's so much. It's not what it was. She'll just say this, the amount of like Ofsted and data and everything that she enjoyed, she's losing. She was just like the cultural aspect, she's losing because people who are from different cultures are all leaving. And, obviously this is one specific school, but, we're seeing quite a lot of people leave, and that makes me quite sad. Hence why I'm like, let's talk, let's highlight. So please, if anyone's listening, and I know that we get a lot of people listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, please feel free to tweet how you've been feeling. What have you noticed? My Twitter handle is @SEHMiss, and you can tweet us at TT Radio Official, and you can use the hashtag TT Radio. Let me get you guys, plug your Twitters whilst we're here as well.
So my Twitter, let's go first and foremost, Black Men Teach. So let's see, it says at Black Men TCH, and then my personal Twitter is Mr. J Josephs. That's MISTER J Josephs.
And myself, my personal Twitter is Active Youth UK. So that's Active ACTIVE, and then Youth YOUTH UK. And then Black Men Teach again at Black Men TCH.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. So feel free to tweet any of us if you are listening live. But if you're listening later, please do tweet, follow us. Let us know what you thought about anything that we've said so far. Do you know what? It's like, really, there's some real positive aspects, but also it's sad just to think about what some people have gone through. And actually, Albert, you spoke about tokenism, and actually that's not what we want as well. And it made me think of a few weeks ago. So on the side, I hope my head teacher's not listening, but she does know, she's aware that I was thinking about working in America. And so I've been part of an agency, getting ready for potentially a job in America. And they announced a few weeks ago, they said, the school in Virginia wants to interview with you. And I was like, Virginia's not on my list. That really was not on my list. But hey, they were like, it's a good opportunity, do the interview. And I did the interview. It was online, quite overwhelming actually, because it was there was like 6 white ladies. So all of a sudden I was like, there's no multiculturalism already, I can see, but cool. And also here an interview wouldn't have like 6 individual screens of other people. That was quite crazy. And I remember asking them, what are you looking for? Why are you looking for someone abroad? And they mentioned that, well, the head teacher gave quite a good answer, but I was quite taken aback. And she just mentioned that where they lived in Virginia, where the children went to school, there's no representation, that they don't really go too far. You know, they don't really leave their town. So it's just completely white, she said to me. So she was like, you know, if we can't get them to go to places where there's lots of representation, and she doesn't want them to be ignorant, then she'll bring the representation there. And I thought, okay, she's being honest. And I thought, that's good. She, you know, she's trying to do something great. But then I thought, for my own self, because then I did get offered the job, but then for my own self, I had to think, oh, but that is a bit tokenistic for me. For me, because I was like, oh, then I'll just be completely on my own, you know. So you guys have really had me thinking there, actually. Had me thinking. It's making me think, you know, what can be done. But then also I want to celebrate. There's so many things I want to discuss, actually. I'm like, oh, gosh, I'm running out of time. But also just thinking about being Black in education now, and just how the children, how have you found it's been in your classrooms? Do you get to talk about your culture at all? I know that, you know, I love talking to the children about my hair. You know, I remember when I came wearing a headscarf once, and one of the kids was like, oh my gosh, miss, you wear a headscarf. I was like, yeah. And she was like, I wear one too. I thought it was just me. I was like, no, it's not just you. You know, getting to teach my kids the candy. If you don't know about the candy, you need to know. It's, you know, things where I take my name really serious, you know, and I think it's so important to get people's names right. And that's something, you know, from growing up, where my name's not even the hardest, Shaniqua Edwards-Hayde, but people would always be like, Shani, can I call you Shani? Can I call you Shan? No, Shaniqua. And Edwards-Hayde, I found teachers who have been like, oh, can I just shorten it? Can you just be Edwards? And I'll be like, nope, I'm purposely Shaniqua Edwards-Hayde, EH, Edwards-Hayde. And I make sure my kids always tell them, be proud of your name. Be proud. I remember one kid said, oh, my name's long though. My surname's long. And I was like, if you want to shorten it, that's up to you. If you want to, don't do it, because other people have made you want to, though. It's yours. Be proud of it. So I've done a lot of talking there. So feel free to chime in on anything I've discussed. But also just want to know what you feel like. What is it like for you being, you know, a Black teacher, and how has it been positively, I guess, in a way? Albert.
Yeah, I think for me, the name thing is important. I've had many sort of scenarios with my surname. It's interesting because as a boy, you know, I watched Mr. T and the A Team, and I had a PE teacher who was called Mr. Thomas, but everyone called him Mr. T. So when I started my teacher journey, you know, the naive, almost the naivety in me, just before I really realized what it was like, I already wanted to be called Mr. A. And that was just not out of people not being able to pronounce my name. It was just, I want Mr. A. But then obviously getting into schools, and you know, staff, students pronouncing my name. Sometimes, you know, students were better than staff. You know, sometimes staff were you know were really bad. Like they would be adding syllables, and it was just like, no, it's Mr. Adeyemi. And obviously, as I've grown through in my career and in myself, I've become better in sort of just addressing that and correcting it and challenging it, and ensuring and trying to ensure that other students' names are correct, pronounced properly as well. And just valuing that. So I previously had a student who had a Nigerian surname, but it wasn't necessarily being pronounced correctly. And I just had a conversation with him about it, and he was like, yeah, he realized we almost had a little bit of a joke and a laugh, and just a little bit of background about the meaning of his name, and just for him to, even though that's the way he's decided that he wants people to pronounce it, just for him to understand the background and meaning of his name, and to value it within himself.
Yes. Love that. And it's just because you've been through it as well, you know, the importance of that as well, and just empowering these children and being like, you know, be proud, say it, tell them, correct them. Jono.
Yeah. So just names powerful. I don't.
Oh.
So
No, I'm like, have I done something wrong? I'm like, oh gosh, have I been saying it correctly?
no, you haven't. You haven't. I think similar to what Albert was saying. In my department, my friends, and I would say that we are friends actually because we work very hard and we actually care about each other. They call me JJ, and that's something that's kind of spread. Now, there's some students who, you know, I only found out last week. They have a secret nickname for me, which is Mr. JJ, and it's like, we're not friends, you know. It's Mr. it's Mr. Joseph. But we can have that banter there, and I think what they really appreciate of myself, and one of the things that I do absolutely love about teaching, and even the school that I teach at, is that I'm able to bring my whole self, and my whole self from day one, interview day. You know, I came in looking fresh. I had the 360 waves, the shape up.
Hey.
You know, now they've seen that progression from waves to to locks. And they've just loved that transition, and I've appreciated that transition myself when I come in with different styles and, you know, barrel twist and all of these things. And, you know, I'm going as a staff governor, I'm also in meetings with talking about my locks and all these different things. And I really appreciate that I'm able to do that and be that my authentic self with that aspect. And it's actually allowed me to connect with so many different students and to have those conversations with so many different students about just care, you know, looking after yourself. And they know that I love to cook as well. So, you know, you mentioned about the curry goat and all of those things like that, like all of these things that I am able to do. And that's something that I love. And I really encourage every single one of my students to kind of embrace themselves. And the number one thing that you have to kind of go through whilst learning in secondary school is actually coming to awareness of who you are. And you're going to have to go on that journey. And it's exciting. It's so exciting when a lot of my close friends are African. And when I'm able to, you know, say a kwaba in tree or, you know, whatever, and they see for Black History Month I wear traditional Nigerian outfits.
Yep.
It just sparks conversation that makes them laugh at me, but they appreciate the fact that I'm representing wholeheartedly.
Love it. Honestly, I'm smiling listening. And these are the great things that, you know, we can discuss, like the positives of it all though, and how it's appreciated. I love it. And, you know, I wanted to ask you guys what can be done. What can we be doing? What can people be doing? What can people listening be doing? And actually, one of the things already I started to think about was, I noticed, you know, especially after the awful murder of George Floyd, we had decolonizing the curriculum became quite a thing, quite a common thing. I think it was in discussion before, but I've noticed, you know, now things are starting to change. I don't know in your school, but I feel like as well there's a bit more of a voice you can have where, you know, even I said to my school, you know, Black History Month, you know, we're going to make sure it's Black history. And I feel like a lot of schools are doing it now throughout the year. But then, you know, I remember being on Twitter, must have been like a few years ago, when the discussion of Black History Month shouldn't just be confined to a month. We should like, you know, do Black history in schools throughout the year. I remember someone tweeted me and it's question time. And they tweeted me and they were like, you get a month, so you should be happy that you get a month. And he was like, if you don't like it, then you should go back to your country. And I was, you know, I speak about this to people because I'm like, this is real, this is happening. And I even spoke about, I'm a teacher, you know, I think this is actually what's going on. I think it's so important that the children are taught this. And the fact that someone responds saying that, this is why as well I want to empower all my students, you know, and let them know, especially my Black students, you are amazing, you are capable, because stuff like that, no. So it's about empowering students at the moment. I like to think, you know, teaching them about Black British history as well, not just American history, which, you know, so much has happened, but a lot has happened with Black British history. You know, I always teach my classes about Notting Hill Carnival, because Miss Edwards-Hayde loves a carnival, but I also love it because there's a big history behind it. And actually, if you don't know the history, if you are listening, don't know the history, I suggest you like read it up, because actually it's quite interesting. You'll see why it matters a lot to Black people. So I'm going to go to you guys. You know, what can be done? The curriculum, just anything. Feel free to chime in. Anything.
Yeah, I think for me, like you said, you know, it's about empowering students, and I think when we think about empowering students, it becomes more than just Black history. It's about your students' history and where they come from as well. So this is, you know, just across the year, not speaking about Black History Month. So in my school, we got quite a lot of Asian students. That's the predominantly we're Asian students, and then we've got quite a lot of Polish students as well. So taking an interest in their history as well, and that begins conversation about their history, my history, our history, and how it all sort of comes together. So it's I know a lot of the time he was, oh, why just black? Yeah, Black is important because that's our history, and it's not learned about enough in schools. You know, sometimes the narratives are a little bit skewed. But then I felt when I was involved in Black History Month at my school, like you said, it's important. I felt the need to bring Black British history rather than just focusing on America, because it's you know what they can see, the people in the media that they're aware of, or the people that they may not be aware of, the stories of people in their local communities that are doing amazing things. And then you mentioned the curriculum changes. You know, some it's people think it's a crazy difficult, but it's not, and we've seen how it can be done through in my school, our history curriculum. I remember walking down the corridor there, and this was last year, and a year 8 boy that I don't teach. He's just a Black boy from Nigeria as well. And he came up to me and was like, sir, we're learning about Benin in history, and that's where he is from in Nigeria. And I'm not from there. I've no idea. I don't know much about the Benin culture, but he felt so proud and happy that his country was being taught within his lesson. And it's just moments like that which really that make me realize how crucial it is to have a representative curriculum. And then the point I want to mention there is that didn't come from a Black teacher. That came from a white teacher, you know, seeing what was going on and understanding her students and our school community, and deciding to develop and change the curriculum, especially in Key Stage 3, where they do have some flexibility to do that. So, and that's where, in terms of making this on grow a bit wider scale, it needs to be more than just Black educators that have a passion or are leading the way in some of these curriculum changes. It needs to come from us all that are involved in education.
Love that, because then it's like we were saying before, it's not tokenistic, it's actually trying to make a difference. It's actually, I think that makes so much sense. And actually, I think whilst you're talking, Kimoy, am I saying that right? I'm sorry, you guys know. Kimoy, he said, make the curriculum anti-racist. Look up how Oasis Academies did it. So, hey, I'm going to be doing some research later. I will do. Jono.
Yeah, just not to necessarily echo all that Alba was saying, I think it's quite important as well to kind of focus on the culture of a school, and really do an audit in terms of where do students see themselves, or where can they see themselves, not just in the curriculum, but also within the school as well. And that could be coming down to even like, I don't know, school dinners, really just having a variety or diverse school menu could really make somebody feel kind of included within that school. In addition, you also have just opening up the school to a variety of different, not just culture, but also religion and all of these different things where students and the community is building together and they're able to kind of see themselves within the culture of the school, fix the culture when it comes to being anti-racist.
Yeah, and one thing I also wanted to add is that this is important for all schools, regardless of what your diversity in sort of student body is. It's important for schools that are predominantly white to have a diverse, enriching curriculum, just so that their students are educated on the wider world, and then they're not necessarily ignorant to certain things or have certain biases or they live based on the stereotypes that are portrayed in the media or in from society. So it's definitely important for schools who are not necessarily the most diverse in their student body as well.
I agree, because actually when you spoke about, I think just even like sports stars, I used to always hear Black History Month, or just in anything black, and we'd always talk about Usain Bolt, Martin Luther King, and actually, although they're great people, hey, I love Usain Bolt, but actually tell our students, people from their culture, we've got a range of people. We've got a range. Look at the scientists. Look at the other teachers. There's so many other inspirational people that we could be looking at as well, where let's not just, little it down to just sports stars. So yeah, I can see Kimoy has said, a lot of students always mention that their schools don't do anything that prepares them for modern Britain and understanding diversity or other cultures, which is really important. As well as him mentioning personal development is important too. Black History Month, Culture Day. Yeah. Guys, sorry.
I just wanted to say on that, sorry. So the two things that Kimo mentioned, personal development, I used to say all the time, we have to do our own learning, even as ourselves, we mentioned we had a team meeting for Black Men Teach yesterday actually, and Janoy mentioned it's important for us to actually continue doing our own sort of development and learning, just so that we can continue to be experts in the field that we're working on, so that we can advise and support people appropriately. So even regardless of what stage you are in sort of your whatever it is, diversity, equity, inclusion sort of development, you still continue learning, keep going to events, keep going to CPDs around the topic, just so that you're bettering yourself and putting yourself in a better position to advise and support development of the workforce. And then what was I going to say? Yeah, sorry, I'll leave it at that.
No, that's fine. That's fine, because actually I'm looking at the time. I'm like, oh, much time is going by. So, we're going to have to start to wrap it up. But I'm going to ask you guys, I guess, a final, why does representation matter? And I guess maybe, I guess if someone who is not Black is listening, can they follow you guys, Black Men Teach, and still find out information, all of that? So I'm going to pass it back over to you, Albert, and then Johnny.
Yes, definitely. Follow Black Men Teach on social media, Twitter and Instagram. It's Black Men TCH. We also have a website, Black Men Teach. So Black Men Teach spelled correctly. So TEACH.co.uk, where you can check out a little bit of some of the work we do, some of our services, and our mission, our structure, etc. So check out our website. Also on LinkedIn, Black Men Teach. Yeah, so we're on pretty much all social media. Check out our website, follow ourselves personally, and you definitely connect. If you're a black male, we have a growing community specifically for black men to make sure they have support networks and people to turn to if to support their coming into the profession or their development as an educator already.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'll go to Jonoy. I'll come back to Jonoy, but I can see.
I remembered what I was going to say earlier.
Oh, go.
So on Kimoy's point, where he says a lot of students don't say that school prepares them for the wider world. I was going to flip that around as well. So research shows some of the stats you mentioned earlier. Research shows that a lot of teachers, after completing their teacher training and starting school and started working in school, they say that they don't feel prepared to teach students from different backgrounds. All right, so I think that's an area in terms of the teacher training process that needs to be worked on. In most teacher training processes, the diversity and sort of representation unit or module or lecture is normally optional, or it's normally something that's done on the day that most students have sports fixtures and enrichments and things like that. So that's an element that needs to be looked at as well. So the teachers being ready and prepared to teach students from different backgrounds or with English as an additional language and things like that. Just linking into what Kimoy was saying.
Great. That's actually a really good point. So I really hope, and I'll definitely pass this on to some teacher training institutions, because I think that's such a good point.
Sorry. Oh, is it my turn?
Yes, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree. I agree with exactly what Albert said. And the reason being is the fact that through our conversations with Black Men Teach and a lot of the discussion that we've had, we find ourselves communicating the fact that a diverse community or a diverse school can benefit so many different people, both students and teachers alike, especially when it comes to be more inclusive and giving a different perspective. And so there needs to be that investment in that from the school, but also from the individuals themselves. Like, I think if you want to be a diverse or a more inclusive individual or practitioner, you're gonna have to kind of step out if your school's not allowing you to do that, or they're not catering to that need. Step out, go to CPDs, not to necessarily shamelessly plug Black Men Teach, but follow us, and also other organizations who are doing amazing things as well. See what's out there and really and truly understand that you're improving yourself for the students who are sitting in front of you and are waiting to kind of receive the world that you've experienced so they can pass it on to them.
Gosh, you said that all beautifully. You said it all so just... Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. I've really enjoyed this discussion, and I hope just people have listened to us discuss and learn a thing or two from it. But also, like you said, seek CPD, seek things out there, groups out there. Kimoy, I should have had you on this show as well, because you're coming with some great truths. For those who can't see, he's mentioned representation also matters, as we want young people to know they can become teachers too. When asking young people what professions they want to enter, many don't mention teaching. Why? They don't see many teachers like that. Black Men Teach will address this too, but so much to do. And just thank you so much for all you guys have been doing. Honestly, we're going to start to end the show, but for those of you who do listen regularly, we end our show in a specific way, and I like to know my guests' favourite fictional teachers. Now, we have a range, so I'm always interested to see if you go for someone different or you go for someone, that we all love. hopefully, there's one person who's banned at the moment. I should have told you. I don't think any of you have chosen her, but you might have. And that's Miss Honey. Miss Honey is banned. She is banned. Was that any of you guys' choices?
No, I knew that would be a common.
That one is too common. And my class last year, they used to say, Miss Honey is an awful teacher. They were like, she adopted the kid out of the blue. Well, she just took her home.
Safeguarding.
Major safeguarding was going on in that school out there. But also Miss Honey, my kids, they're so truthful. They were like, she's too nice. They were like, we're gonna run rings around her because she was too nice. So I was like, okay, cool. So let's start off with Jono this time.
Okay, cool. So I have been thinking long and hard about this one, and it only makes sense. My favorite fictional teacher, and he was a teacher, I would say, is Ken Carter. He's not fictional, but yeah, Coach Carter.
Yes.
He was just amazing. He was like, we talk about, I see so much of myself in him, in the sense that he was disciplined, and he ultimately, his presence was able to express why he was there, and he was there for the kids, and he wanted to see them beyond their current situations. And I think a lot of the students who I engage with, that's where my conversation stems from with them.
Okay. Oh, I like that. That's a great answer there. Okay, that's a great one. And I haven't had that answer before, just in general. So, okay. Thank you. And also, for those of you who want to watch the film, it's a good film to watch. So, thank you. And Albert.
No, I'm angry because
Why are you angry?
Because the PE teacher in me, has that was mine, but I came prepared. I was thinking as well, the Nutty Professor. I think he, just in terms of it almost made it cool to be intelligent and nerdy and sort of in his character, his warmth. But then aside, I think reflective on to bring it back to reality in a sense was just the self-esteem aspect. And I feel like that's probably an aspect that quite a lot of Black educators have in one way, shape or another. There may be a challenge with self-esteem, regardless of how good you are at your job.
That's a good one. That is a good one, actually. And yeah, you're right. Especially after everything we've been talking about, just self-esteem and everything. That is a good one. And you guys are making me want to watch some old school movies. So thanks. These are great ones. And also, you two will be happy to know no one's chosen those two before. So, well done.
It's all about being unique.
I haven't watched the show before. Who have you had in the past?
Okay, so we've had Harry Potter gets mentioned a lot. So we get like Dumbledore. To be fair, I think my first one might have been Dumbledore. We've got someone once said Edna Krabappel from The Simpsons. I was like, geez, yeah. I know. I have to be like, okay, that's an interesting one. We had someone said, what's the lady from How to Get Away with Murder?
It's Keaton.
Yes.
Oh,
but they said, yeah, I know. I'm having. I'm shaking my head right now. So we've had. I'm trying to think of the range. Oh, someone said Mr. I cannot say the Miyagi. I cannot say it now.
Mr. Miyagi.
That's the one.
Quickly, who's yours, by the way?
So I at the moment I have to change mine like every week because I think I might have to change it to favorite actual. I might start changing it to favorite actual teacher that you had growing up because every week mine's just changing. But at the moment, I'm going to say mine's Janine Teagues from Abbott Elementary. Don't know if you guys watched that. If you don't, it's a great show. And Janine Teagues, firstly, she's black. I see myself in her. Her mission is to help the lives of her students. She's relentlessly optimistic. That's like me. And she's like really caring, and she wants to do everything for her kids. So that's mine for today. That's mine for today. I feel like you guys haven't watched, so you can't judge me, and that makes me happy. Or have you guys watched Abbott Elementary?
Yeah, I'm on season 2.
Oh, you have? Oh, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Yay. Okay, I was like, maybe they're judging me, but thank you, appreciate. Okay, guys, it's been so lovely to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate. And yeah, thank you for everyone who's taken the time to listen. Like I said before, feel free to tweet me at SEHMiss. Feel free to tweet us at TT Radio Official. Before we go, can I just get your Twitter handles again, if that's okay?
Yeah, so it's so you can contact both of us via Black Men Teach one. So that's at Black Men Teach. So that's TCH. Or you can visit our website, blackmenteach.co.uk. But my personal Twitter is Mr. J Josephs, MISTERJ, and then Josephs with an S at the end.
Yes, myself is at Active Youth UK on Twitter, and then like Janoy said, at Black Men TCH on Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you everyone. You can listen to me on the Sunday Late Show again next month, the first Sunday of every month. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.